right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to Talking Buffalo podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. I am Patrick Moran. Thank you very much for locking in, whether it's on the audio side, Spotify, Apple, or on the video side, YouTube, of course. I have Chad DeDominicis with me, and it's funny. We were talking briefly before we started taping just now, and it's like I kind of had some structure where it was like, we're going to talk Buffalo Bills for the first half and then kind of switch over to the Sabres. But as I bring Chad in now, it's like, I'll tell you what, man, I got to watch the Sabres game today. We're taping this, by the way, very late Thursday night after the Sabres game. A big shootout win over the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Sabres are, Chad, the Sabres they're hot, man. I mean, they've been fun. They've been fun to watch for a while, but like they're hot now. They're getting results. They're not just entertaining us. We're starting to see some results, man. First of all, how you doing? Thank you very much for joining me again. You did this last week as well. And yeah, man, it's or 2 weeks ago I had you on. And it was just it was fun then, and it's becoming a really fun time to be a Sabres fan. Real quick for anybody, if you happen to be catching the video side of this on YouTube right now, I have a Buffalo Sabres hat on. This thing is still, I bought this like in August or September, sometime not long after I moved back to Buffalo. And this thing's still like hard and crusty. That's how little I've worn it. But the Sabres hat's on right now, bro. This team's fun to watch, and they're starting to win. It's cool, buddy.
Yeah, it's I don't know what to put a word on it really. It's for a little bit of the winning, you're like, okay, where's the the lull gonna come? Because that's how it always goes. But they're cruising right now. I mean, I think that win makes them 7-3 in March, which is crazy, like the best record they've had, I think, ever. So in March, at least recently. So that's awesome. And not only are they winning games, I know these last 3 have been overtime shootout. They're like, from a number standpoint, like they're outperforming their opponent. Like tonight, they just hammered the Penguins at 5-on-5. Like it wasn't close in the numbers. Like it was a beating, and you had a couple of fluky goals that got the Penguins to overtime. But overall, very impressive win again. They're not even beating. I can't even say like, oh, well, they're just beating up on bad teams. I mean, Calgary, Vancouver, Pittsburgh, Vegas, Toronto twice. Like they're having the way some good teams. And oh, by the way, they have the Capitals on Friday and then the Rangers on Sunday. So they're in a stretch here, and it's exciting. You get excited for these games now. We're kind of at the end here. You're like, okay, let's just get this over with. For now, you're kind of excited for these games coming up.
I was going to ask you, that was going to be one of my first questions for you when it comes to the Sabres right now. And by the way, we're going to talk plenty of Buffalo Bills soon as well. But right now with these wins, I think this is like 5 of 6 they've won now. I was going to ask you that. Are they getting lucky? Because sometimes teams win and it can be a facade, and they're not really playing that good. They're getting a couple breaks here and there. But from what little I've seen, and you would certainly know far better than I would, I mean, it looks to me like they're deserving a lot of these points that they're getting right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious when the numbers update overnight. I'll take a look in the morning where they are compared to the league over this 10-game stretch to see how good their numbers are compared to the league. I mean, again, it's only a 10-game stretch, so we won't get carried away, but I'm just curious to see how, they've improved as a team. And then from just an overall individual player standpoint, I mean, you have your first line of Tuck and Thompson, that are still doing their thing. You have your younger guys that are coming in, but I think probably the most exciting thing that people and fans should look forward to and be excited about is it looks like Rasmus Dahlin decided he's just going to be one of the best defensemen in hockey, and he's just going to do that.
Yeah.
Like, the guy just is rolling right now. Both ends of the ice look so smooth, so easy, so much confidence. Every time he touches the puck, you just see he's going to do something with it. He's going to set someone up, something special, and that's the player we were hoping we were getting a couple of years ago when you drafted him. It took a few years to get here, and that's awesome. And oh, by the way, the other guy you just drafted first overall could be here as soon as this weekend. I think that's when the tournament starts. So if they lose in the first round, they could sign him then, but I have a feeling they'll probably win a few rounds, but no more than a month, or even like 3 weeks. Power could be around here too, which would be pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's definitely exciting. What's really cool too is it's one thing for the hometown announcers and people who cover the team and Sabres fans to rave about Rasmus Dahlin. What's been really cool now is to see them play on TNT twice over the last week or so,
Yep.
and have those guys kind of just drooling over the way he's played, as well as Tage Thompson, who scored 2 goals again tonight. I mean,
Yep.
what's he up to, 27 right now?
27, and in my world, this shootout one counts. That's a hat trick in my book. I mean, not really, but in my book, I'll give it a hat trick. But 27 goals. He's easily gonna get to 30. I mean, he could have 30 by the weekend. So it's wild that I don't know if I've seen anything like it that I could think of. The jump that he made this season, all because he changed position. I mean, there's more to it, obviously, probably, but mostly because of the position change. Going from a winger to a center forced him to change his game and play differently and go to the middle of the ice. And seeing a guy go from, maybe even like a left out 4th line winger to a legitimate first line, no worse than a second line center that scores 30 goals, like it's absolute found money. And Adams in that front office has to be pretty thrilled with what they have there.
I jokingly, and let me emphasize jokingly, told a buddy of mine who I was talking to during the game tonight, I said, this guy's going to hit 30. I'm going to start comparing his game to Mario Lemieux. And I was clearly joking. Let me tread some water carefully here, because I want to make sure I'm clear with this, so my comparison doesn't look stupid. I think of Tage Thompson right now, and Josh Allen comes to mind in a way, okay? Not this. Look, Josh Allen was drafted to be the savior of the franchise, okay? And he's become that. That's not Tage Thompson. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? And I'm not saying Tage Thompson. Josh Allen is arguably, if he's not the best quarterback in the NFL, he's right there right now, okay? Right. I don't think Tage Thompson is the best center in the NHL. So I want to be really clear for people listening or watching, like, oh, what the hell are you talking about? What I mean is this, Chad. You see a jump in this guy from a couple years ago until now, and you just talked about it. It's been like you haven't seen a lot of jumps like that from a player like we're seeing right now from Tage Thompson. Like with Josh Allen, for an example, he wasn't garbage his rookie year, but he was very mediocre. But he had flashes. You saw some flashes, and then in year 2, you started to see those flashes more often. By year 3, Josh Allen became a stud. He finished second in the NFL in MVP voting, and then last year he proved that was no fluke. And in the playoffs, he had maybe the best 2-game stretch I've ever seen a quarterback have in my life. What I'm saying about it is Josh Allen just made like a monumental jump. I feel like with Tage Thompson, again, not to compare him to Josh Allen, the franchise savior, but just the way his game is accelerated. You know what I'm saying? Going from a guy who was nothing to, like you said, a bottom line guy to now a guy who, I mean, he's your number one center right now, and going forward too, probably for quite a while. Like that number one line's probably staying together. He's your guy right now. Just talk about like that jump that he's had. And do you understand what I'm saying about when I compare the Josh Allen?
I get it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's not,
it's not the greatest comparison.
But there's some similarities, right?
It popped in my mind, Chad, when you said you're not sure you've seen it. Like that's how I felt about Josh. It's like, I can't remember a quarterback who had a bigger jump from being okay to like superstar in the league. So that's why I kind of thought of that as you were saying it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some similarities in the sense of the jump they took from one season to the next, for sure. I mean, it differentiates between, position, even the draft ranking. I mean, Allen was a top 10 pick overall,
right.
And he was a raw prospect coming out, and you could see the same thing for Thompson too. Thompson's it's a funny story, and it's one of the reasons I've always. And I'll tell the story because, I mean, people listen to my podcast have heard it, but maybe not everybody listens to my podcast, listen to yours. So I'll tell the story because it is interesting. I had a scout tell me that one of the interesting things about Thompson, and you could see it in his game the last few years, is he always just seems, I don't know, like he doesn't use his body as much. He always wants to be that fancy guy with the moves and the, that skill set. And you're always like, come on, dude, you're 6'7", you're 6'6", like get in there, use your body. And a scout said to me, well, actually, growing up his whole life, he wasn't one of the bigger guys on the ice. He actually, 17 years old, was only 5'10" or 5'11". And then over the next 2 years at the University of UConn, in his last year in the U.S. National Development Program, he actually shot up like 5 or 6 inches. So
Hmm.
this is a kid who, for his whole career, basically playing hockey, was like, an average sized kid growing up, used his skill set and all that thing. And then all of a sudden, he became a giant. And it took a while, was what the scouts surmised to me. It might take a while for him still to learn how to use that body, to learn how to use it at the NHL game, and to be comfortable being the player he can be and realizing what he can do. And we're seeing it here. So it's a very interesting story, and it made a lot of sense when you watch the game the last few years. That frustrated people, but when you take the whole story back and understand how it was coming up and how we had that huge growth spurt, and it's all part of the development process and kind of how it finally is all come together to him for him. It makes some sense, and it's funny. Thinking about the Allen thing. They're two giant men, but it took different paths to where they are now.
Right. This team right now, well, let me ask you this. You've covered this team for a while now. And again, you know them far better than I do. Do you get a sense that this team right now, or let me start here. Let me back it up a little bit. A couple of years ago, Eichel, Reinhardt, all these other guys, there was a point where, and I remember because I've been doing this show now for a while, and I've had Joe Yurden on. Me and Joe have been on. He's been on every Friday almost for a year. A year ago at this time, and this is no lie, I, honest to God, I hated the Buffalo Sabres more than I've ever hated a hockey team or any sports team in my life. I wish if I wasn't lazy, I would go back, I would dig up clips. I buried this team so hard just one calendar year ago. The most unlikable, loathsome ice hockey team or just sports team, one of them that I've ever seen in my life. Now I like this team. Were the Sabres unlikable? It's one thing to be bad,
Oh yeah.
but like a year or two ago, over the last year or two before this year, do you get a sense of somebody who less emotionally covers the team? Because I'm an emotional, overreacting, knee-jerking idiot. All right, I'm open to that, and I admit that. But like this team just feels much more likable. Whereas the last couple of years, I didn't get that sense. This team just didn't feel like it was a likable team.
Yeah. No, I mean you're right. I mean, do you see the building?
Yeah.
That
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
gives it away right there, right? I mean, people just aren't paying now. That I think is going to be interesting is how things go over the last month here if that building starts to fill in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be interesting to watch. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, people were just done. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not paying. I mean, the pandemic had something to do with it. People had the whole year off anyways, so it kind of already was an easy out. But yeah, people were done. I didn't blame them. You were beginning another rebuild. You were trading your best players, and what you were thinking, maybe best case scenario, we can maybe be a good team in 3 years. But come on, how many times have we done this? Am I going to believe this is the time it's going to work? We've done this 2 or 3 times now already. Well, so far it's kind of working, and they have a lot of good pieces. A lot of guys took steps. Guys who were struggling early, like Darlene, found their way now, and they're healthy, maybe for the first time all season, which is kind of crazy to think about with the COVID and injuries. So that's good too. And then you have your reinforcements coming: Devin Levi, Ryan Johnson, Owen Power. All those guys can be done with their college career, and either in Buffalo or Rochester within the next 1 to 3 weeks. And, don't forget Jack Quinn, by the way, who's having an historic AHL season, scoring at a 2 points per game pace down there. Oh, and JJ Paterka, who's also having an historic AHL season, but is overshadowed by Jack Quinn.
Weren't we worried about Jack Quinn being a bust like a year ago?
Talk about a Josh Allen jump. Jack
Yeah.
Quinn.
I mean, at the AHL level, but yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
man. I mean, he's absolutely he's crushing it there. If there was one thing about tonight's game, and again, we're taping this late Thursday post Sabres game, that and I completely understand it's still the crowd is still, and I also know Pittsburgh draws a lot of fans as well.
Especially with the Canadian border open now, you're going to get those Penguins fans.
This was the kind of game where maybe if it happens a year from now and the way this team's playing and more fans come back a year from now, this kind of game, the roof would have came off. You know what I mean? It was a fun up and down game, two good teams, star players scoring all the goals. It was really cool. I made a comment I had tweeted because Tay Shops had scored when the Sabres went up 1-0, and then Sidney Crosby scored. And my head was down. I was like on my computer doing something. And it was like the crowd, the pop from the crowd was just about as loud.
Yeah.
When Crosby scored as it was. But yeah, going back to that likability thing, I think this team, and this might be another difference, and maybe I'm wrong. I feel like this team, I mean, every team says they get along and, they have this chemistry and they like each other and blah, 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 blah. I
Mhm.
didn't necessarily feel the authenticity of that before, but now I really do. I think this team legitimately, truly does really like playing for each other.
For sure.
And I think that in part, I think it's becoming infectious with fans. And maybe it's not quite showing yet at the arena, with ticket sales or actually people in the arena, not so much the ticket sales. But I do think fans are starting to trickle back. And normally I'd be like, you guys are fucking bandwagon hoppers, but this team has done so much to scar these fans that
Yeah.
you can't blame them for being the way they are, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, by the way, going back earlier into the week, which I was planning on talking about before, but this game just got me so hyped, man. Like I said, I got my Sabres hat on and shit. No trade deadline trades. All right, I'll get that right. Um, Surprising, but it felt like nobody was really mad about it. Fans weren't really mad. Um, Media didn't really blast them, and I think it was it was somewhat surprising. The only thing Kevin Adams revealed, anyway, I know you learned something else too. Well, I'm going to ask you about that in a second, but
Mhm.
was that Kyler Miller just came back too late from injury, and he said the offers weren't there because he hadn't gotten to play enough. But do you buy the fact that were you good with the fact that this team stood pat and their decision was, let's not break this team up. Let's try to win more games for the rest of the season and maybe get that, that winning taste a little bit more and maybe not rush these guys up. And also, I'm sure not screw up Rochester as well. If they would have gotten rid of 4 or 5 of these guys that could have screwed up Rochester. What were your thoughts now that I got you on the podcast about the Sabres making no moves?
So how I felt at 5 o'clock on Monday is not how I feel today. And I'll kind of tell you why.
Okay.
So I thought it was, the way I put it on the podcast Monday we recorded is I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. And it's because I feel like it was another missed opportunity to get assets, whether it be for cap space,
Mm-hmm.
just moving guys out, and because you have a logjam of forwards, and then you have these, like I said, these college kids that are coming, and you're going to have to play them, and you already have 8 defensemen, and you're going to be bringing more in and more, and then maybe Levi wants NHL games, and it becomes a whole thing potentially. But after talking to some people Monday night and Tuesday morning, it kind of just seems like nothing was there. There wasn't much
Yeah.
on Miller. There wasn't much on Eakin. As I tweeted out, which I'm sure that's about in a second, Hinostroza really wasn't available. And Anderson only wanted to go to Florida. And it just didn't work there from a price standpoint, what Florida was willing to pay, which is pretty much nothing. So guys stayed. It works out. They were excited about it. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna ever kill Adams over it in the first place because it's not, the end of the world. But yeah, I mean, it's how I feel today is definitely different than how I felt 5 o'clock Monday because knowing what I know now for sure. Because I didn't buy any of the excuse like on Colin Miller that there was no offers or no interest at all on him, but from people that I trust, it turns out that indeed actually was the case.
What about Hinostroza? Because you tweeted about him for people listening. What happened with him? Why is he still a Sabre? It felt to me if they were going to make any trade where they might have gotten something back of relative value, it
Mm.
would have been him. But obviously, he's still a Sabre, pending unrestricted free agent after the season. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so like I tweeted out, I had a feeling that this was the case because if you'll listen to insiders talk about guys who were available. You looked at trade bait boards, not a mention of Hinostroza at all from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because he's a guy that, for other players that removed Kelly Crow, Andrew Cogliano, players of that ilk, you know, you would think you can get some sort of value for him, a forward, a bottom 6 guy who can be productive for you, who's fast, who can kill penalties. Um, so he didn't move as I kind of expected. And so I just asked what the deal was with Hinostroza, and I was flat out told, well, he was made pretty much unavailable outside of a team blowing the doors off of Adams that he can't refuse an offer on him. He was made unavailable. They didn't really take many calls on him, and no, they would like to resign him. And from what he said today, it appears like he wants to stay. So I imagine at some point that'll get done here. I don't know when. I don't even know if they've had conversations yet, but both parties seems interested, and when that's the case, usually something gets done. So, I would imagine he's on this team next year.
Let me pull up a tweet. These were the lines from tonight, and it was a tweet earlier today that were the Sabres lines in practice. Because I want to ask you a question with him in the lineup. So let me pull that up right here. The Sabres lines today or in tonight's game. So Skinner, Thompson, and Tuck, of course. Krebs, Cousins, Hinostroza. And you got Asplin, Middlestat, and Olofsson. Then your fourth line is Gergensen, Eakin, and Okpo. So I don't really, for the purpose of this question, don't really care about the defensive pairings. And then the extra was Bjork. So you let's say Hinostroza wants to stay, okay? And they keep him.
Yep.
And you got Jack, Jack Quinn's going to crack this lineup when he's ready. And then you got Peterka. Okay, now you look at these 12 forwards right now.
Yep.
I guess you could take out Eakin after the season, not now.
Yeah.
Say if you take him out after the season. And if Hinostroza stays and you got Quinn and Peterka, does this mean Peterka's still going to be a little bit away from cracking this lineup? Because I mean, I just showed you the four lines from tonight, and the only one you really are going to remove probably is Eakin from this, unless, of course, I mean, they could make a trade all of a sudden, ask for something like that, but makes you wonder, like, is Peterka and Quinn both going to be able to crack this lineup next year?
Yeah, that's the interesting part now. Anthony actually, for Expected Buffalo, little plug here, does have an article coming out on this very subject tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, it's I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know. All of those guys besides Eakin either have a contract or are a restricted free agent, so you retain their rights. I mean, Anders Bjork, who's not playing, he still has one more year left on his contract. So I mean, he's probably easy to get rid of as like a throw-in for a trade, or I don't know. Someone will probably take him. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this probably leads you to assume Olofsson will be moved. He was one of the guys whose names was out there before the deadline here. You heard some rumors on him, so I would assume he does probably get moved. I'm curious what the value would be there, but that would just then essentially create space for Quinn. I mean, I guess you have Eakin spot, but you had to figure that out. Are you going to move Gergensen to center and then doing a Poso Hinostroza Gergensen's thing? I don't know, maybe, but Granato likes to have his face-off center, and Gergens isn't the best face-off guy, so that could present a problem that they might want somebody else there. So, yeah, I mean, Middlestat could be a guy maybe they look to move on from. But yeah, I mean, Asplin, I guess you could, but I kind of like what he brings from a defensive standpoint. They don't have a lot of those players, and you need guys like that to play with Krebs and Cousins. So it's going to get interesting, and that doesn't even count if you want to improve on your forwards in general from outside the organization. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they have planned, how they figure this out with Hinostroza back. Because, yeah, I mean, it occupies a roster spot that you thought would be open. So I have no idea how it's going to play out. It's certainly going to be one of the interesting things that we talk about all offseason.
Yeah, and to your point, by the way, Eakin's out there taking the opening faceoffs in overtime. You know what I mean? So actually, he has some value to this team. One last thing. This is going to be a fun off season. Like you said, lots of possibilities. The team is playing well. Fans are starting to rally behind them little by little. And I look forward to next fall because you got the Bills are going to be, it's going to be hype city with Buffalo.
Right.
But, again, with the Sabres, the way they're looking now, and you got Owen Power coming up and Quinn coming up for a little cup of coffee now and then next year. You got a ton of cap room if you were to make some kind of trade. Not saying they're going to, and I'm not saying they're ready to, but they certainly have that ability to because of the cap, and they got 3 first-round picks. So they also have an ability to
2 could be in the top 15 if Vegas continues to fall apart here.
Right.
Too. Unexpectedly.
They might, man. They might.
36% odds today. I saw somewhere. 36% odds to make the playoffs. Not good.
Sabres haters are probably loving life right. Or not Sabres haters. My bad. Jack Eichel haters are probably loving life right now.
Oh, I'm loving it. I mean, I'm loving it. I mean,
he goes there and all of a sudden they can't win hockey games, man. It does make you wonder. It does.
I mean,
Is
they're
this?
really injured. Really
They
injured.
are really injured, and I know Jack's had a lot of bad luck too. You know, he
Mhm.
just and playing on teams is just flat out weren't very talented. But it makes you wonder at some point, man.
It's funny. It's
Maybe
funny.
not him specifically, but maybe there's just are some guys in sports who might have all the talent in the world, but for whatever reason, whether it's their own attitude or just rotten luck, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
they always find ways to lose. And you're starting
Yeah.
to wonder, is Jack Eichel going to be that guy in the NHL, man? And
Yeah.
so anyway, all right, let's take a real quick break. And on the other side, we're going to come back and I want to talk some football. I was going to talk football with you off the bat, but again, this Sabres game tonight just had me so hyped. So quick break, be right back. More with Chad DeDominicis. All right, I am back with Chad DeDominicis. So the NFL just the offseason, this offseason is just crazy, man. And just when you think it's like, all right, it can't get any crazier, and all the crazy shit that is going to happen this offseason is done. It just continues, man. So we wake up on Thursday morning and go about our daily routines. And you're like, and you're a Bills fan, you're thinking, all right, maybe they're going to make a little low key signing, or, you know, you're looking at what some of these other free agents that are still out there, what they may do. And then I don't know what, sometime late morning, Ian Rappaport and then Adam Schefter are tweeting about Tyreek Hill's being granted permission to seek a trade. And then like 10 minutes later, it's like there's deals in place, and that it's the Dolphins and the Jets that are finalists for it. And then like what, a half hour after that, by like lunchtime and shit, Tyreek Hill ends up with the Miami Dolphins for 5 picks. I'm like, God damn, man. A very a mixed reaction for me. And I want to hear your thoughts on this as well. Because on one hand, I am very happy. I'm very happy because the blueprint for the Bills has been the Kansas City Chiefs. And yeah, they did beat them in the regular season last year. And yes, they should have beat them obviously in the playoffs, but they didn't, you know? And the biggest reason why over the last couple of years, the Bills have not been able to get over the hump, I'm sorry, it isn't just because of 13 seconds. It's because they can't stop Tyreek Hill, man. I looked at his stats in the last 2 playoff games against the Bills, 20 catches, 320 yards in 2 games. I mean, he has just absolutely decimated the Bills. The Bills have had no answer for his speed. They've played scared against him. We saw it in the playoff game. They pretty much gave him a free 20 yards. They're playing 20 yards off him. You know, I don't even want to get into that part. But anyway, I'm really happy because the Chiefs are the team that the Bills have needed to beat in the AFC. I just wish your boy would have went somewhere else besides Miami.
I wish somebody would just go to the NFC, please. Like, there's a different conference. Like, somebody just go over there.
Literally, everybody is going from either AFC to AFC or going from the NFC to the AFC. It's just, I've never seen anything like this. One conference just so supremely better than the other, at least on paper right now. Yeah. But anyway, so he goes to Miami, man. And again, go to the Jets, go to the NFC. What are your thoughts on this right now? Because again, the Bills in Miami are obviously in the same division. They're going to see him twice every year, although they play Kansas City during the regular season every year too, because they both win their division. But like, what were your thoughts? First of all, obviously, I would assume you were shocked, just like all of us, at the trade. But where he ends up going, just your thoughts in general, him being gone from Kansas City, but now with Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say when it originally came out that he wanted to be traded, was going to be moved. I'm like, oh, he's going to Green Bay all day. Going to Green Bay, play with Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams replacement, easy. And then like 10 minutes later, it was like, oh, the Jets or Dolphins. Like, yeah, well, okay, that's unfortunate, but of course, it's the AFC, like we said, so it's not surprising. But I've gone back and forth on it, and your part is right. I think for what the Bills want to do this season and win a Super Bowl, I think it helps their cause. Because I think it weakens Kansas City, because you could even start to make arguments now that Kansas City might be the worst team in that division. It's like, I'm not going to go crazy, but from a roster talent standpoint right now,
it's fair.
Yeah. I mean, they might have the best quarterback in the division still, so that's, that works in their favor. But yeah, I mean, it takes, it weakens Kansas City, at least offensively, and that defense still is not very good. They've lost guys. Now, I told somebody else earlier I was talking to, if you move a little bit beyond this season, actually this probably helps Kansas City, maybe even keeps their window open longer, because now they have more picks, and now they have this cap space that you were sitting here yesterday going, well, Kansas City is going to sign Tyreek Hill. They're going to have Mahomes money and Kelsey money. How are they even going to do anything? They're going to fall off. And well, all of a sudden they kind of, in the long run, maybe not short term, the long run, kind of got a gift here. That's going to allow them to stay relevant, moving forward. But moving past Kansas City in terms of being Miami, I'm not as hard on Tua as some people. I don't think he's that good by any means.
I got
But
thoughts on that too.
I
Yeah,
also
go ahead.
don't think he's some noodle army cleans with a ball 10 yards either. Like I just don't. That's just not who he is. But I mean, there's no denying. I mean, you got Waddle there, you got Gesicki, you got the running backs that they signed now.
Chase Edmonds,
Yep.
Rosny Morset. Yeah,
Yep. And then you add Hill here. I mean, there's a lot of speed there. You don't need to have a big arm to hit that speed. You just give him the ball and have him run past people. So, in terms of an offense, they could match the Bills. So maybe the Bills don't beat them 35-7. Maybe it's a 35-28 score, but
right.
I still think the Bills are a better team. I think Miami is probably the second best team in the division now. I'm pretty comfortable saying that even with Tua as the quarterback, but in terms of, anything impacting the Bills from like being the best team in the division or winning the division, I don't think it changes that much. At least not now. Now, if Tua's bad and Miami's like, okay, we have a good quarterback, and then maybe they trade for some, who the hell knows, some quarterback that we don't expect to be traded next year, and they have a good quarterback, then maybe that changes things. But I think for this year, it at the end, it kind of nets out as a win for the Bills overall, what they want to do.
I agree 100%. I would much rather, I didn't want Tyreek Hill with Miami, but I would much rather him be with Miami than I would with Kansas City. I want to unpack a lot because you had a lot of good points. I agree with what you said too about Kansas City. I think it hurts them short term, but I think long term, look, this is something, and it scares me a little bit when it comes to the Bills too. You can't have a bunch of superstars and pay a bunch of superstars superstar money. You're going to lose some guys. Tyreek Hill loved playing with Patrick Mahomes. You don't think he likes Kansas City? He wanted to get paid, and they could not pay him. Because if they would have paid him, it would have came at the consequence of lots of other moves that they probably wouldn't have had to make. So I agree with you 100%. I think long term, I mean, they did pick up 5 draft picks. This is a big win for Miami, though, too, man.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned a lot of guys. They also signed Cedric Wilson, who's a pretty good receiver from Dallas. Oh, and they got a new head coach in Mike McDaniel.
I really like him.
Yeah, me too. He's an offensive-minded head coach. I mean, I have nothing against Brian Flores, but I think McDaniel's going to help Tua a lot more. I also agree with your point about Tua. Dude, I've been beefing today on Twitter with Bills fans. Look, I'm a Bills fan. I'm a Sabres fan, and I don't try to hide it. I don't try to deny it. But when I'm behind this microphone or like you when you're writing or podcasting, I'm sure you attempt to be objective. I don't think you're covering the team as a homer, even if in your heart you are a Sabres fan. That's how I am with the Bills. I love the Bills. I want the Bills to win, but I at least attempt to be objective. And the Tua slander, the Tua hatred is so, it's fucking annoying, man. And fans, and quite frankly, some content creators out there too. The guy, you would think, Chad, you would think that the Buffalo Bills right now, the fans I'm talking about, who that watched Josh Allen stink as a rookie, with a roster that was not good around him, but he stunk as a rookie. Okay, you would say a guy going back to the 90s, like Eric Moulds, who was a first-round draft pick and didn't do jack shit for 2 years. 2 years, he did nothing on this roster. You would think a guy like Dawson Knox, who was a stud last year, but was inconsistent as hell. And I'm being nice the first couple of years before he really started to blossom last year. You would think this team would understand, or these fan base would understand, to be a little more hesitant to go and label on guys bust and bums so quickly. Look, Tua, I agree with you. He's not a stud. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar quarterback. He's not going to be the best like he was at Alabama. But I also don't think he's Trent Edwards either. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I was looking up some numbers, and they're not pretty. But bottom line, Miami was 13-8 when he starts games. 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 194 yards per game. Again, none of that shit's going to blow you away. But he does. They win. They won 7 of 8 games down the stretch when he started. So the guy knows how to win. He comes from a winning college football program. Jalen Waddle's a beast. I was getting ready to say in year 2 before this trade, this guy might be one of the best 10 to 15 receivers in the entire NFL in his second year. Now he's not even the best wide receiver in his locker room anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So stop with the Tua slander, everyone out there watching or listening. Give the guy a third year. I know you want to hate him, and I understand fans are fanatics. I get that. So it's fun to hate the enemy, but it's a little bit. Let's chill a little bit on writing the guy off after just 2 freaking years. You know what I'm saying? I really have a problem with fans, and I also have a problem with whether it's content creators or sports media journalists, whoever it may be, that are just pretty much calling this guy Trent Edwards the second right now. Give him a year. Now, he's got no more excuses. He's got every weapon in his arsenal right now. You know, he's got a good coach.
And look, Teddy Bridgewater's there. That leash is going to be short.
Absolutely.
You start off rough the first week or two, or even in preseason, like they'll yank that chain on you. And Daniels has no loyalty to this guy.
No,
it's not his pick.
Zero.
Yeah. So,
and guess what, too, by the way, if they do move on from him, or even if they don't, even after all this shit Miami gave up to get Hill, they still got 2 number 1 picks.
2 number 1 picks next year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, I agree. I still think the Bills are the better team. They got the better quarterback, and they got the better defense by far.
Yep.
And their weapons are comparable with Miami's, even on paper. But Miami's legit, man. It's time, to me, in my opinion anyway, you throw them in the mix. We were talking about there might be 5 good AFC teams that don't make the playoffs next year. Now there might be 6 good AFC teams that don't make the playoffs this year. Miami deserves to be in the mix. I think they're clearly better than New England at this point.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the difference of today is I went into this season thinking you could probably sweep the division, where now I go, hey, you probably go 5-1.
Yeah.
That really sums it up to how much of a change it is for me. And I honestly don't even care about the regular season. I said that last time we talked with the Bills. I don't even care. Just give me to the playoffs. I mean, now the 1 seed I think is extremely important, especially the way this AFC lines up right now. As little games as you could play against anybody else with that stacked conference is good and what they need to do. But overall, just if I could hit the fast forward, just get me to the postseason and let's ride, then that's what I could do if I had the chance.
You know what, too? This is also, who doesn't love a good rivalry? Buffalo Miami's been a rivalry. This rivalry just definitely got juicier. You know what I mean? These games are going to be fun. So you don't consider Kansas City anymore like in that tier, like that top tier. Like it's been before this, it was all, everyone was like Buffalo and Kansas City were on everyone's number 1 tier. Some people might have Cincinnati or the Chargers or something like that, but it was always Buffalo, Kansas City, and someone. Do you think Kansas City might have fallen off a little bit with this move?
I think they've fallen off, but they still have Patrick Mahomes. So until I see Patrick Mahomes isn't the same player without Tyreek Hill, they're there. Like it's I'm not going to believe it until I see it, kind of thing. Like it's the same thing with Josh Allen. Like if he loses Steph Diggs, but with these receiver contracts, that might not be too far away. But if he was to lose Steph Diggs, like, sure, it would be disappointing. It would, lower their level of expectancy, but you're like, okay, well, you have the best quarterback in football, or one of them. He should be able to elevate the rest of your receivers up, and you should be able to still roll. And, I mean, he still has their weapons. They got Juju and a lot of people like him, but I think he's a good player. Kelsey's still there. They're going to get a receiver, and they're probably going to draft 1, if not 2 receivers in a stacked draft too. So,
yeah, they're not bums.
No.
But that division, again, is so loaded. They can win it. They can finish 4th. I don't think either is completely unrealistic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that really changes from how I felt about them before today, though, because that defense just isn't good. So I kind of felt going into the season before today that any team I feel that way in that division, because it's crazy. They could be 1 or 4. There's really maybe the Raiders, kind of, you can say, are maybe the one that's not a favorite. But I mean, they got Adams, and if Carr can,
Chandler Jones too.
If Carr can be decent, there's no reason to think that they can't just play along the rest of them too.
They made the playoffs last year without Chandler Jones or Devontae Adams. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I agree. You brought up Stephon Diggs, and I'm glad you did. Is it a little bit worrisome about what's going on this offseason with Devontae? Because you got guys in Devontae Adams, and you got guys in Tyreek Hill right now who are 2 of the best receivers in the NFL, who are in such great situations on teams that win and have 2 of the best quarterbacks, arguably the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL, with Patrick Mahomes and with Aaron Rodgers. And now they're both gone. And you know what I'm saying? Because of money.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Devontae Adams, well, he says this is his dream to play in the Raiders. I'm sure it was, but I'm sure the money he got has got something to do with that as
Of
well.
course.
And obviously, Tyreek Hill, I mean, everybody knows this was a money thing. The Chiefs couldn't pay him what he wanted to get paid. You look at a guy like Stephon Diggs, man, he's got 2 years left on his deal still, roughly only going to make about 25 million ish. This is a guy who's had 230 receptions, 2,760 yards, 18 touchdowns in 2 seasons with the Bills. He has been everything they could have hoped for and more since trading for him 2 years ago. He hasn't said anything public, and Brandon,
Mm-hmm.
he does have 2 years left on his deal. I don't know how it's going to play out, but when you look at the money again that these guys are getting and how important Stephon Diggs is to this team, are you a little bit concerned that this could become an issue sooner than later?
Yeah, not this season, but I think next off season it could become a thing. I think he's in to let's go win a Super Bowl, and okay, you didn't pay me this year, fine, but that's not gonna fly next year. Like you're either gonna pay me or we're gonna have some issues, kind of thing. I could see happening. Um, I am surprised. I was surprised that there didn't seem to be much interest in doing something with him this season, and it has now probably cost them money with these new contracts that have come out. I do wonder if you got Brandon Bean alone in a room and say, "Hey, man, you kind of wish you had a do over there." He might tell you, "Yeah, maybe he does wish he took care of this before all this stuff started happening." In terms of these guys getting paid, so it's hard, and this is when you have a premier quarterback who makes as much as he does. Um, you have to make these tough decisions. You have to decide with your salary cap what you want. Now, I am the guy who will sit here and tell you the salary cap is not real and is fake, and you can make anything in the world you want work if you really wanted to.
Mhm.
So, I think they could really ideally make it work. But they'll have to be creative. They'll have to make some things move around. But if they don't take care of him early next off season, I think we can start to see it become something where he's not so quiet.
If you would have told me that the Bills were going to sign Von Miller and OJ Howard and defensive tackles, and a bunch of other guys, I'm not going to run up everyone they signed, but especially obviously Von Miller, I would have said that well, they surely must have redid Stephon Diggs's deal. And as much as that deal might be that new deal that he gets, that new money or whatever, at least to cap it the first year, they always, you know how that works.
Yeah,
The cap hit's always less. I
yeah,
am surprised they haven't touched that or done anything. Matt Milano restructured, Micah Hyde restructured, and I can't remember. They did a couple other things. But yeah, man, to your point, if it does drag in the next season, which it probably will, because he does have 2 years left. But if it does drag in the next off season, man, you got a lot of tough decisions to make because this year's free agent class for the Bills, the guys who left, like Levi Wallace, I don't even think that was about money. I just think the Bills think they could draft or do better than
yeah.
Levi because he didn't get big money from Pittsburgh. Harrison Phillips got decent money, but the Bills could have matched that. But they wanted to go a different direction with 2 defensive tackles. Mitch Trubisky was never going to stay here.
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen with Ryan Bates, which, by the way, that will be a mistake. I feel like the Bills should have worked a little harder to give him a multi-year deal instead of
My
just.
gut still says he comes back, if you're asking me, but that's just where I'm
Well,
at.
I am asking you. So your gut, you do think he'll come back?
I still think he comes back.
Oh, I'm a little more concerned than you. There's 3 teams out there that have shown interest in him. He's coming back for more than 2.4 million, is whatever that tender that they
For sure. Yeah.
that they offered him. But anyway, my point was they didn't lose that much. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but next year is not going to be the same case because now next year, Devin Singletary, Dawson Knox, Jordan Poyer, these guys are all going to be Ed Oliver. These guys are all going to be free agents after next year. Jermaine Edmonds, I didn't mention him because I'm not sure they're going to sign him no long-term deal. But
I don't
anyway,
think they are.
that's a lot of talent. And he might be a guy that they lose because of the guys I
Yeah.
just mentioned and Stephon Diggs. I mean, just like with Kansas City, you can't pay everybody. And Stephon Diggs is one guy I don't want to lose because I think he makes Josh Allen better. I don't think I don't think Stephon Diggs makes Josh Allen. That's not what I'm saying, but he does
Yeah.
make him better. And I
For
know
sure.
he makes Gabriel. You look at that playoff game last year, they were keying on Diggs so hard. I mean, Gabe Davis was getting single coverage with safeties who had no business trying to cover him. And that's a lot because of Stephon Diggs. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He's a very big key to this offense. And I hope that they find a way to get something done with him soon. I don't
Yeah.
want this to drag into next year.
Yeah. I mean, if the guys you mentioned for next season, I think Knox and Oliver are your two important pieces there. Which, by the way, the tight end market itself is not so cheap anymore. So,
Yeah,
that's
8-9 million for okay tight ends now. That's basically what they're going.
And you have
right
a guy
there,
who just
average.
scored 9 touchdowns last year.
Yeah,
and
9 touchdowns.
He's probably gonna rack him up again this year. So
yeah. One last thing about the Bills right now. So we're looking at this roster. Let's, for the sake of discussion, say that Chad DeDominicis is right, and Ryan Bates does come back, which will make me very happy. I hope you're right. I like him a lot. I think he's got a lot of room to grow, and I think he was really good last year. The one position on this team, without question, that needs addressing is corner. Now, if they don't re-sign Ryan Bates and they lose him, then I think interior offensive line, which will be addressed in the draft regardless, I think it becomes a higher priority. But right now, especially again, the first goal, and Brandon Beane says this all the time, Chad, first and foremost, you got to win your division. And to win your division, you got to beat the 3 other teams. Miami's loaded now with speed. The Bills have struggled with speed receivers in the past. And again, they lose Levi Wallace. Corner's got to be a top priority. That's my long-winded way of getting to this point, man. They need a cornerback early in this draft. They draft 25th. If you were the GM right now, if you're Brandon Beane, and there's 4 guys that are really head and shoulders above at the top. You got Sauce Gardner, Stingley, Andrew Booth Jr., and Trent McDuffie. If you get to pick 15, 16, 17, the Bills pick 25th, and one of the 2 of those guys are there, do you think it would be wise maybe for Beane to say, I'll give you my first and second? Because I looked it up. If the Bills gave up the first and second using the old trade value chart, they can get up to about 15, 16. Is it worth it to give up your first and your second and go up and get a corner who could probably start from you on day one?
Oh, this is tough. Because
it is. Draft questions are always tough.
Well, it's tough for me because I am a numbers guy at heart. And an analytics numbers guy will tell you that you never trade your draft picks. So that's where I'm at. I'm trading up is bad, evil, giving up picks. Don't do it. Keep your darts. And just make your picks. But I get the need. Because the other part I struggle with is, and we just talked about it with Diggs. I guess I have to know exactly what is the plan with him. If the plan is we're going to ride out a year, we'll see how next year goes, and maybe the year after that he's not back. Well, then maybe I'm thinking about grabbing a receiver, to be honest, instead of a corner. But
Jeremy White loves you, buddy.
I'm all offense. I look at this league and I just sit there and say defenses don't stop anybody anyways. You had the best defense in football going into the Kansas City Chiefs game, and you couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes to save your life. You couldn't even keep him from going 40 yards in 13 seconds. So what am I going to invest a first-round pick in a defensive player corner where I know it's important, but or I could just keep trying to stock and load my offense and my receivers, and that's where the NFL is going now. And I'll find a corner. Dane Jackson, I actually kind of like Dane Jackson. So if he's my number 2 corner, fine. They couldn't stop Tyreek Hill anyways, so who the hell cares? Let's just score more points than the other team, because that's always been my mindset, especially against the playoffs and you play against Patrick Mahomes, or it's going to be, Russell Wilson or whoever you get into a thing with. Deshaun Watson now, maybe. They're probably going to score every time because they're just that good. So you know what? I got to score every time too. So that's where I'm at. I get the need at corner. I understand it. I respect it. They probably think it's more important than I do, because especially when you have a defensive-minded head coach. But me, I'm score more points, baby. Let's just keep loading up that offense. Let's just score as many points as possible, and we'll let the defense figure itself out. Get me 3 stops a game, 2 or 3 stops a game. My offense scores almost every time. I'll be happy.
I'll tell you what, man. You just saying to a lot of Bills fans right now, man. There are a lot of people, a lot of fans, not just fans, a lot of media right now. John Scott, Jeremy White, Nick Gator, all these guys, man. Wide receiver, running back too. Which, by the way, was Singletary again. We could be going after this year. Why not draft somebody now so you don't got to pay Devin Singletary next year? It's a good philosophy. Everyone, my man Chad DeDominicis, expected Buffalo. Check it out. I'll put a link again. $5 a month, man, whatever it is. You can't beat that shit, man. I've said this before many times with you. You get stuff there that you're not going to get literally anywhere else. You guys got a good podcast. I love it. I got to get Anthony. I've never had Anthony on the show, man.
And he's a fun dude. He's a good time.
He's a good dude, man. I love him on Twitter, but thank you so much for doing this. And again, I was going to talk Bills and Sabres. Quite frankly, I told you this morning. I think I did. I forgot the Sabres were even playing on Thursday night.
Yeah.
So what the hell? What a nice treat that turned out to be. But thanks so much for doing this, buddy. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, anytime, man. I love doing it. Always good for a good chat.